All right, you all. Thank you all for connecting into this tonight and sharing my birthday solar return with me. Um, this is my 47th year. I'm beginning my 48th trip around the sun. And yeah, December is a big month for us. I have one of my son's birthdays is December 3rd. Michelle and I's anniversary is yesterday. And what's cool is this is the proof copy of the book, Drama of the Planets, and it came in the mail yesterday. Joshua May's cover. Joshua Mays is a muralist and visual artist out of Oakland, formerly out of Denver, and did the cover. If you Google Afrofuturist art, his art's gonna come up. It'll be like the third or the fourth thing that comes up. Really cool stuff. So yeah, the publishers got it out to us. This is the proof copy. We kind of got to go through it and make sure everything is finalized. And then once it's finalized, then we can send it to print. And I don't think I'm going to like officially release it until around the spring equinox. Renee and I were kind of doing some like, you know, electional astrology type, like what is the best time to release the book. But yeah, I'll have some copies available for people, especially local folks, but I can send copies out to people if you're interested and we're living at a distance. So I'll be reading from this and um, yeah, and I want to kind of create a little mini ritual environment of it. And if y'all are down for that, I'm going to I'll read the foreword to the book. I'm probably going to read most of it. It's a pretty short book. It's like short even for a poetry book. It's maybe more officially a chapbook. I'll probably read most, if not all of it. You know, folks can stay on for as long as they can. And you know, we'll try to end at 7:30 and maybe just have a few minutes afterwards of yap. Um, yeah, and I guess I haven't really done this over Zoom quite before, and if people really have, like, a burning to, like, have me pause and, like, have some interchange about stuff, I'm down for that. Um, yeah, and the book is in 3 parts, and so maybe if there is dialogue that wants to happen, maybe it could happen between the parts of the book. But yeah, what else? Okay, there's one other thing that I think is kind of funny. I shared in the chat an image Michelle and I saw. We saw this from Saturday Night Live yesterday. We're not huge Saturday Night Live watchers, but we had it on yesterday.
Ramona,
And-
it just got sent to me as a private message. She
oh,
just
really? Okay, let me try to put it in again. Let's see if I can get it in. I don't know why it keeps. Okay, here we go. Uh, okay. Can everyone see that in the chat? Okay. Yes, this is an image from like the weekend update. And this is Michael Che here on the left. And he's like, tomorrow has been declared to be National Time Traveler Day, or pretend to be a time traveler day. And his whole joke was it was declared in the future, so blah blah blah. And I saw that and I was like, we got to get a picture of that. And in a way, I feel like that's just super appropriate for the book. It's basically like me pretending to be a time traveler. But it was written at a much earlier age in my life. And it's actually published under a pen name. That's Uriel Jones. Little mask, kind of more reflective of the person I was at the time that I wrote this. And so I'll say more about that in the foreword. I'll get us a little bit prepared in a kind of meditative space, and then I'll go. Okay. Michelle's in the house. All right.
Audience in the back.
Yeah. All right. All right, friends. Thanks for being here at my virtual birthday party. Okay. So the foreword. From the beginning of humanity, perhaps even before, human beings have transmitted personal and cultural experience and collective yearning in the form of stories, gestured, oral, written, sung, embodied, or enacted. Story is the basis and the medium of memory, ritual knowledge, and fantasy. It is the stuff from which we weave worlds, as the saying goes. These poems were born in the dark, the result of peering into the outer and inner darkness, the inner night sky. Gradually, tiny lights appeared, lights that connected and wove patterns, songs, and stories. Most of these poems were written between 2001 and 2005, except for two written between 2007 and 9. They cover a period from my final years as a college student to starting a family as a young parent. This was a time of intense formative and transformative experience for me and set the foundation and even layered the dream of my adult life. Some believe that when a young person comes of age, there is a window of opportunity where the universe, God, destiny gives them initiatory experiences if they choose them, and oftentimes if they do not. At this time, and periodically returning in the life, each of us can discover a personal myth around which to unfurl a generative life. For readers familiar with the symbolic language of astrology, the bulk of these poems came during the transiting Uranus square to natal Uranus between my 21st and 23rd years, and I'm publishing them shortly after my Uranus opposition has gone out of orb. To add to this, I also had a once in a lifetime Pluto transit my natal Venus and Sun conjunct Neptune during this period. At that time, I had no conscious awareness of this or its significance, but I felt and experienced it. Back then, my astrological studies were embryonic, which makes so much of what is conveyed in these poems uncanny, in part because the contents themselves felt like messages from the outer planets, an invitation into a kind of galactic conversation and consciousness. However, at that time, my writing was as much informed, if not more, by comic books and early 8-bit video games as it was by metaphysical and visionary literature. There are some ways that what appears here might be dated. Some of the language is quaint, politically questionable, such as the repeated use of the word tribe, which is a politically contested term used by First Nations communities, and at times, delusionally self-centered and adolescent. There are even moments in the writing where, even at that time, I had some awareness of this and used quotation marks to indicate it or induce a tone of irony. I've chosen to retain these terms in part to show that our language and our understandings shift over a life cycle and historically. Still, I've sat with these poems for decades, and each time I turn to them, I have the sense that they came through me more so than from me. They felt and still feel like transmissions, transmissions that need to be shared, folklore, myth, and visions that wove in the personal but transcended it. The naive, transcended it, the naive, yet in part because of this pure visions of youth that well up right from the earth. The 20th century philosopher, composer, and astrologer Dane Rudyard likened each century to the annual seasonal cycle in temperate climates. Using that analogy, these poems came through me as buried seeds in the winter of the 21st century, and I offer them to emerge above ground in the springtime when the seeds of dormant social and psychic energies from the turn of the century first become visible and rapidly develop. The poems take the reader to domains celestial, erotic, chthonic, and autobiographical, spanning ancient and mythic past, imagined and prophetic futures, and hopefully inspired nowness. They are perhaps best read at dusk, that magic and changing hour, or in the still of the night when the mind inclines to dreaming. Consider reading a few at a time and pausing to take a walk, create images with color, or dance if you feel moved. Read a bit and return. See the images in your mind's eye and note the ways they travel through your feelings and sensations. Astrological audiences might find them interesting food for thought and lore about the outer planets. These poems might also be of interest to sci-fi and fantasy enthusiasts, Afrofuturists and other ethnofuturists, students of depth psychology, readers of visionary and romantic poetry traditions, and those involved in the work of reviving coming-of-age ceremonies and practices of initiation. but mostly they are addressed to young people, or the young at heart, or old children, those questing for identity, to know themselves as children of the universe, birthed at a certain time and place, and possibly with a certain destiny. Or more simply, I offer them to those who might enjoy a series of strange and enchanting tales. Enjoy. Okay, so maybe let's take a minute and I'm going to invite us to, if you have a candle, maybe light a candle. We need water. Let's notice our feet on the ground and the weight of our bodies pulled right down into the center of the earth. And swinging with the earth and spinning with the earth around the sun. Notice our spines pushing us up against the ground and our heads into the sky. And the in and out of our breathing. We might even imagine our breath and our heartbeats synchronized. Okay, book one. It's called Drama of the Planets. First poem is called My Ship. Marooned, far out here, a distant point of potentials in the stars. To call it down or signal it impossible? A twinkle at the edge, a radiant pearl, intricately cut prism slicing through the darkness. Challengers to the metal men, huge iron orbs, masters of magnetics who rock planets and steer suns. Astrological catalysts bouncing meteors to extinguish reptiles. Ambassadors from every star present in DNA twist. Invisible mind cities, vessels made of intricate mists, woven into the ionosphere, closer getting here. The soil sprouts her circuitry too, green cells of the sisterhood, ancient vanished, a choir of entities, strung pulsating beads of plasma, orbiting intelligences, waiting patiently to be selected and take root in humanity. Okay, second poem. This one is called Drama of the Planets, after the book. And as I read it, you might imagine the voice of an older female person, whatever that means to you. The sisterhood was formed of an alliance between the peoples of Uranus, Neptune, and Venus, and their corresponding tribes in spirit trance on Earth. Tiamat, our homeworld, condensation of our biosphere, paradise, park, garden, zoo. Mu, a project upon the continents, the human, our bride, Atlantis, a motherless child. Solid sonar sound held together passages of waves, water the perfect conductor for congealed holograms of echoes. We cultivated vast crystals, wove the lattice of what you call density, alchemy of dew into stone. A bullet of fire from beyond the rings severed you from the moon, grinds us to dust, a necklace for the sun. Ghost calling out, disjointed and aharmonic, crones scolding with their eyes near the roots of the great tree nerve. Iron Mars gained stewardship when the stars left the Virgin to align with the Lion. Jupiter and Saturn administering the rust and their Vulcan chemistry. Pluto and Mercury stood as mediators. So two houses set upon your world, cut off from their ancestry. Our men sailed in ships across storms of time, appearing at each horizon, scattered their seed throughout the continents and eras, as did our rivals. We still recognize the shine in your eyes, mutts and mulattoes of all the gods. Okay, this one's called Succession. It's in two parts. Part one. The tribes still exist, attended by many fires now. Hills tumble down in dusty succession, steppes, plains, and wastelands, tombs of ruined cities. The past spins around, ever tightening wheel of weight, the physics of falling apart. We make our decisions on gossip under the rain of the moon, and gradually the sway of thoughts and mood become belief, which we act upon as history. 2. The tumbling, lineage of the fall, the dive, the descent, a vertical history, the spine of time. Stars bleed semen at night, far off in the tapestry. The eye recognizes its kinship and blueprint through nets and strainers of electricity, static of the city. The earth labors, expressing her halo of faces. Okay. Michelle's saying, do I want to say a word about what any of that is about? I don't know. I'm trying to create a sense, sense of time, kind of, sense of history. This next one is called We Come. And I think something that's was important at this time in my life, and in some ways is something I'm still working with, is I was really wrestling with my religious upbringing. I was really wrestling with, and I was wrestling with my religious upbringing in relationship to the actual spiritual life that I felt. And um, and in working with the symbols that I inherited versus the things that were showing themselves to me internally and sometimes in my real world. And so, like any good poetry, a lot of this stuff is a mixture of real experiences, imaginations, dreams, and it's all kind of compressed. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read this next one. Become. Brethren, sisters, zodiac seasons spin globe meridians. We come. Across the reflected lines of war, cracks of hell's hands grasping, we come. From Palace Chapel hills, new apes in the branches of knowing's jungle. All skin eye touch melds, winged rebels, children of suns withdrawn, emancipated Lucifers, slipped weaving diamonds, flipping into the night. This next one's called A Slip. And this was like, I started to like observe the moon a lot and observe my life and notice like what was happening. A slip. Moon, colors sliding spectrum, tones of the planets touch different centers, powers, multi-god self, still factioned. A slip somewhere when deja vu instant happens. Where does the matrix stutter to catch me, keep me guessing, without harmony, away from the assembled prism of unity? Okay, this one's called Poets to Parrots. 2 parts also. Part 1. We spoke a true story once to continue telling lies. Cancel all versions, all variations of situations. Censor the future, a slice of pie from the circle. Illegal degrees of rotation, and a stiffness began. The removal of one color led to the slow destruction of the others, and thus the present darkening. 2. We all got to sing the same song? Poets to Parrots. Okay, this next one's called Interglobal Nomadic Syncretism. And this one came starting on my 19th birthday, actually. I remember this. Starting on my 19th birthday, this might sound a little odd, but I tried to imagine my parents conceiving me. And I tried to imagine what their mood was, what state of mind they were in. And I had a lot of questions at this time. You know, is there God? Is there an afterlife? And what started to happen as I was meditating on conception or being conceived is I started to get a feeling not only that my parents, the mood they were in when I was conceived was important, but almost I started to feel a feeling that reached back before I was born. And more so than an afterlife, I started to have a feeling of a pre-life. And when I really tuned into that feeling, it changed a lot of my conception of what it means to be alive, or like the relation of like our consciousness to our bodies. And I really felt, I had this feeling of like, I came into this life at like with a particular quality already. And, you know, for those of us who are interested in astrology, you look at a birth chart, and the birth chart is itself this kind of like contemplation of the mystery of the fact that you were born at all, and the unique like possibility that each person is. And so my feeling was that that was even active before I was born. Okay, and this one's a little bit of a spoken word poem, so its style slightly different. Take a risk. Where I'm from, where he from, nowhere man, worlds I've commanded. Where I'm from, boy of the drum, son of foreign sons, boy of the drum, hitchhike on come. Where I'm from, son of the drum, boy of foreign sons. Beam from aquatic dog star invisible to the two-eyed porpoise homing signals. Wife of the seven sisters, picked up by Neptune, looped and remastered in Uranian rings as I sing the sisters' songs in Venusian harems of study, then to the moon to upload mixtapes of my dreams, superimposed onto Ethiopian gene streams, Seminole Celtic spiced veins and things. Birthed in Cali for a deep dose of the Aquarian rays, then the days on the polluted plains of the Front Range where I was raised. The winds, spokes of the skies change. Okay. This one's also called Drama of the Planets, a prequel. And when I wrote this one about 2004, I was like, I think I got a book between that and the first one. That was when the idea of this first came. So it gives you a sense of how fast my timeline is with things. Okay. I, Chiron of the Watch, messages of light from beyond the prison. The Plutonians, pure crystal, holograms in ice, sonar seen, polished cold, bright in the dark back there. Our golden age came when sun supernova reversed huge in its condensing. Omnipotent within our gem, prison, recede sense, freeze the oldest light with our engines. Coalesced in spin records, diamond cold crush. The Neptunian Council, lush swamp of mist, rich, etheric, cold cotton, an azul vibration, cloud dream ocean conceived as moods rippled over, subtle coloring of the sun. The electronic mages of Uranus conceive a single magnet image and send ripples into the galaxy with thought to alter the day star itself. To that end, they cultivated storm, turbulence, dove down the eye of moon-sized cyclones to map the spirals. Chorus-hung echo, raise continents on Earth, and plant the cold seed of metal growing today. The slave drivers of the Red Plain, dust and pestilence, knights that refuse to die, trading armor in decay. But radioactive poison leak of 10,000 years to hold your image, collecting in our veins, darkening sky color. You see, Earth, Mars, and Venus Luna were once a trinity, joined dimensions of the same world. Earth, fire, air/water equals mist, till the crystal introduced to tilt our axis. And soon again, the soul of the crystal will seek integration. Prepare yourselves. Okay, last one of this chapter. It's very brief. Forms so intricate, they were banished and called chaos. I'll read it again. Forms so intricate, they were banished and called chaos. Okay, that's the end of book one. Check time. Yeah, how are people doing? Anything anybody wants to brief before I? Okay. Okay, so book two is called Up from Under. And this one, yeah, this is like more of the underworld stuff. Excuse me. First one's called Veils. fell off the earth, off sunset, off math, off grid of black cubic space time. Labyrinth of mirrors, locked soul in a box. Splash. Dragons, sea deep and luminous, form dancers, strings of pure love. Sophia, banished wife of God, dog, bitch, all things too beautiful for the world. Recover, reveal my sister's face covered. Okay. This next one is in two parts. It's called Up From Under. And it's based off of a series of dreams I had um, probably between 19 and 20. Evil woman me, scaly blue mistress at the tree. Goddess self ruled before Adam, when the seraphs swept from the sky in fleets. They missed me on diseased plains. I went back for her through a door mouth down, her eyes glowing and empty, sucked her finger-long nipples in blue-lit caverns, here ever since. 2. She took me to her world once, skin now brown, though hair still blue, her convex bed and domed chamber cocoa buttered, a fountain of Coptic crosses hypercubed and rematerializing like hourglass sand in looped stutter. She taught the alchemy of scent, of color applied correct, of spices and candles, how all coagulated juices of attraction swirling, gave hoods, cloaks, shining pictographs, tiny bells to shatter stones, of the crescent and the star, to speak to clouds and wonder at the flight of crows. With nails down my spine, the sting of electricity static present, to cool the ions in rooms. Her fingers spread cards, stones, and curtains, made notation of the songs in the wind. A dance she led sutresses to me, scraps of fortune and bread, smoked-lipped kisses, cinnamon children, vernacular architectural sketches of gardens and temples. To step in time, to breathe sympathetic with the sign and ascendance. And I was thinking about some of these the other night, and I feel like we're in that time of year where we're still kind of sliding down into the dark. And like we haven't really reached like the absolute floor of the winter solstice, but we're pretty close. And I think this was part of what was happening at this time. I was like going into like not a seasonal darkness, but in my own lifetime, I was going down into a pretty deep darkness. And one of the myths of the solstice is like at that very, very kind of pit of the darkness, you can start to kindle new lights. So this next one is kind of similar on that track. It's called The War of Venus versus the Moon. And if I had some like old 1920s noir music, Okay, the War of Venus versus the Moon. Welcome, folks who just jumped on. What's up, Anna? What's up, Asp? Yeah. Hey, Michelle in the background. All right, the War of Venus versus the Moon. Islam, wine, hash, poets in rotation, fixed point hacking the swirl on desert sands, dusty gin and visions given of the past and wisdom. We align with internal rhythm or intuition. A sect of the morning stars made haven there. Beings of air pimp the dreams of earth, harem her astral hair. Urge to merge, her sister from the future's mirror. Woven raised thought collective, spherical soul sung solid. Echo back, thickened, then swung into the moon. Iron spore of the rust world raise its wires, cables, streets, and trains, veins to strangle. The lunar lied and turned shadows of enslavement. My lover's corpse scattered in the soils and souls as kingdoms and cultures, the ruins of paradise reenacted. Record stuck skipping, and have you heard the rest? Mistress awoke from the madness, star and staff clasped, a new spice on her skin, pattern stitched into her cloak, bestow from the ocean, my husband. Scold the wayward sons, tridents given, down on a mission. Unstring the lie you lazily envisioned. Suck the pollution you peddled, change blood back from venom. Dance with the statue of this cancer, slacken its erection, soften its ossification. Again kindle, tongue the oyster, and earth's deepest womb, a hidden and sleeping moisture. Okay, next one is called mutatis mutandis. I think it's a Latin phrase, and it means, it's like almost a legal term, but it means if you change this, then this has to change too. And actually, sometimes it means almost the reverse. It means this changes, but it doesn't change this. But it compares two things and like indicates how one affects the other. It's like when you revise legal language. Okay. Submerged on Earth, fighting Plutonian wars, frozen centuries, crystalline civilizations, images in the mirrors of history. Escher chessboard unlocking. Tiny shiftings cause massive repositionings. Mind strings, breakthrough thoughts, quantum causalities. Massive disasters shattering ages ago, shell-shocked species. Heavy clouds. Music is a slow lumber, heavy swagger dragging. Dawn of the galactic morning. Your world, the dimensions in the dark, unconnected as stars above, but moving in unison, twisting towards an apex. And when the light comes on and rewind, fade, everything you feel heightened, pores slow exploding, the eye of the body opens. Okay. All right, this one's called Tolkien. And I think I just named it Tolkien because it's like this sense of like big stories, a sense of maybe like living in your imagination and like whole like imaginative histories. Previously, our task was as destroyers of an era, as with the present. Indeed, we appear at every dusk or dawn, depending. Away teams, ephemeral engineers anchoring structures into the mist, tuning souls to become receptive to new architectures of perception. Blueprints attractive of matter. Stories that play out as cultures. Pictures encoded deep. Components, organs, psychic machinery, and anatomy. Till now, I dwell between the cracks, inhabited ruins of an amusement park, crumble ignored, subsisting off a diet of smoke, sugar, and exhaustion. Okay, a couple more in this book. This one's called We Remember, and it was written shortly after 9/11. With plugs, angles, and appliances, sonic and visual devices, our rooms are more information nexuses than dwellings. Virtual worlds with four walls, places where we can surround ourselves with mirrors and trophies. Warp tunnel screens, dens to conduct pharmacological experiments. Hold court about dreams. Cultivate and observe plant and animal life. Seduce. Minds made external and put on display. Each room a throne, models of private universes. Almost as if our mutation was orchestrated. Horse breeders, social and genetic engineers, expert psychologists studying demographics and populations, structural adjusters who view the land masses simply as matter to be repackaged and accumulated as stocks. We see beyond the serpent of money and mana, the polluted dragon lines of earth, minds vibrating past the web of radio waves. A sapphire circuitry begins to take shape, silvery billions of fireflies, a snowstorm where each soul sends a flake into the cloud to expand the possibility of future shapes. Improvise the template. Gossamer nerves extending, plugging into the air, software, blue bubble brain shielding us from space. Good. Your time has ended. Step down, invisibles, shape changers with human and economic puppets, angry clouds and rivers. Your structures built and crumbled by missiles armed with passengers. Release your children, refugees of the stars and the flood. Your role as gods done. No more eagles and ideologies, though we still may construct maps and symbols. We remember you. All right, this one's called Meditation on Lessons. And this was written when Michelle and I used to live in the mountains, and the kids were little. I think really is maybe only Akasha at that point. And we were starting to like kind of settle into domestic life, I guess. Meditation on lessons. And I like had time to just go walk out in a winter night. Time to cultivate the peaceful arts, the green arts of hand in hand, seasonings to estimate temperaments and offset the effects of the weather. Pulse slows down or revs up with the sun. Practice absorbing moonbeams and the cascade configured of the constellations. The continual inhale, the swelling, the glowing, tightening diamond. Mind manifested but not mastered. Life of the cyclical man, plugged in, tuned to the celestial music, message contained, unravel in heart, translate in art. Don't stop to fall out of step. Turns inwards, spiral ends. Be ready to leap. Okay, last mini one of this chapter. Approaches the throne. Who are you? I am the sun. Who am I? A star. Okay, book 3. It's a short book. It's called Letter to My Children. And the first poem in it is called A Children's Story. And also written around the same time as the last poem. I don't know, one of my favorite things was reading the kids' stories. It was great. And this is kind of written in that spirit. In fact, I almost imagine it as a kind of children's book, children's story. The old people, the mer people, star-born and bound. They knew the language of plants and birds, the rapt songs of the moon accreting seashells in the water's tumbling tide. Sunk, said they would rise again with wealth and enlightenment for all lands. The open exchange, sharing the energy like air, all hands partaking in the flow of things, the merry-go-round of stars and seasons, thoughts and feelings. Smooth pearl temples and palaces, soft glow at night, magentas, turquoise, limes. Sun, soul of us all, shone through thick, warm mist, the depth of cloud, or an ocean evaporating. Bubble world, voice told, sound ripple, rainbow wave messages. Atlan, her son, a shipbuilder and toller of great crystals. Tone heard worldwide song. Her old names forgotten. Maiden Star, Sea Venus, Lemuria, a stand-in. Her husband, the storm, sailed off long ago, past the stars, to seed himself on 7 worlds. Okay. Next one's called Out of the Spell of History. And I used to do this thing where sometimes the title of the poem and the first line of the poem were the same thing. And occasionally the last line of the poem was the actual title of the poem. And what's her name? I'm forgetting her name. She writes the really short poems. Forgetting her name. Ravi. Even. Anyway, there's another poet who does it now. She titles the poems at the end of the poem. Ravi. Huh? Wahid. It could be Wahid too. I'm not sure. It might be Wahid too. Um, anyway, they beat me to it by like 10 years or whatever. So this poem, the title is also one of the lines. Out of the spell of history. Yeah, thank you. Renee said it. Okay, I'm gonna do it again.
Who was it?
It's Naria
Oh,
Wahid.
yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Okay, go again. Out of the spell of his story, which does repeat, permutation. Again, golden age coming from a direction no one's looking, facing rear view to the forward till it fades out edges, surround and eclipse your view. The sun changed too from greater command, steering a chime within the land, time to release superhuman power onto the earth. Thus began a colossal battle of wills, egos to realize every wish, but blind to the greater spell. What's order wants now creates hells. Most looked to the competitor's eyes, and so the full harvest hung, unrealized. But slow spins a star to shine, a gentle and steady magnetics. Lives led his fingers to do the weaving. Designs delivered inside. Soul swim in equinox sway, so that tomorrow can't be foretold by the facts of today. The laws of night can't predict the shapes of day. Hey,
I think you were thinking of Rupi Kaur, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's a new kind of style of like the title comes at the end. All right. Um, Next one's called Expecting, and it was actually written before our third child was born, hence the title in a way. And this poem is actually dedicated to Michelle. Right. All right. It might not seem like it at first, but but listen. Okay.
You're gonna tell me.
Yeah, I did already. But Michelle said, "You want to tell me at our anniversary yesterday?" I'm telling. Okay. Expecting. My first love was the moon, but she was like, "You ain't gonna catch me. Be realistic." Plus, plenty of glow girls down there. Then I loved the lime, mango, papaya, turmeric, grapefruit girl, and her eyes twinkled starlight, emerald, copper. Looking up at dark, and felt my children of loin and mine 1,000 years hence, and brought the bright sunshine she did, lifting me out of my feet and landing me back in my father's in the shower. And the moon, more like my mama, asking she sphinx riddles to answer down the years. So, some weird Oedipus shit, trying for the original oracle and my chimera hybrid blue boy life.
That one's my favorite.
Right on. All right. All right. This next one's called Conception. And I kind of think about this poem as part two to the inner global nomadic syncretism that I read in book one. And for those of you that weren't on, that poem was kind of a meditation on conception, on being born and the mystery of being born. And, you know, our solar returns, our birthdays in this culture, it's like a really great opportunity to just reflect on, you know, yeah, one of my teachers, Melissa Michaels, read this line from John O'Donohue, I think. And the line was basically, to be born is to be chosen. There's so many, there's a million situations could have happened to not have us be born. And I actually wrote this one in working with Melissa, and she has us do a kind of dance meditation on our conception and our birth. And so this one's called Conception. Soul rode in on them, Stevie Wonder, Inner Vision, Blues into Violet, Transcendental Meditation, California 70s, Feel Good, Change the Nation's Vibrations. Church moan of my pops, mom's wish upon a star, constellation. The mystery of cosmic rhythm, it ain't just mental. Learn the double Dutch sun moon jig. Learn my heartbeat as drum in ecosystem polyrhythm. My breath as whistle, voice as a strain, a grain of soul. Born into the bloodline of the blue brooding people, the yellow hallelujah, wing soul, gravity into sunshine people. To perfect my little boogie, to align it with the picture show mental musics on carousel swing through the ethers, to send love through my fingers. At a time when the earth presses her monuments up from the depths, when the sky kiss solidified electric geodesic bubble skin. What am I in all of this? Like yourselves, a nerve, a feeler, cilia of this great round body. And I should shout out Alice Walker for the last couple lines of that poem. Her blue body, all we know. That's where I got that. All right. Okay, this is like, there's like 3 more left. This one is called Letter to My Children. And it's the title of this chapter. And originally this poem was called Letter to My Daughter, because at that time I only thought I was having 1 kid, didn't know. Changed the title. And it was written before Akasha was born. And I was really just kind of sitting with what does it mean to be a parent at this time and to bring a person into the world and the condition of the world. And what does it mean to be a parent of a child who is coming from multiple racial and cultural backgrounds? And like, who are we in time? And yeah, so this is where this one came from. It's a bit of a longer one. This morning, with one leg in my dreams, I thought I heard the radio announcer say that half the children accounted for in the census were declared multiracial or ethnic. My wife and I have a child coming. Our faces and flesh, hair and eyes are noticeably different, different grains of humanity. Our tribe started out like any other in its spring, as transgressors and twisters, as thieves of the old ways. Compared to generations past, we considered ourselves gentle, nonviolent. Maybe I'm just saying that because the moment hadn't arrived. Revolution, struggle, war. We don't want war. Our people follow the ways of beauty and translate mysteries of the world's soul. Still, the paradox of temples being built of blood and designed by serpents. We were used to long distances separating us. Our machines linked us on those occasions, though they lacked love's full magnetism. There were thousands of empty habitations where 2 souls could mingle bodies. Children were conceived with strong passions and no regard, mixed blends and seasonings of the globe's refugees. Gypsies feel the slow disintegration of the old order, brittle in its winter. Iron, microchips, crystals, which we would use in new old grids of geomancy. We had a respectful disregard for traditions and had to appeal to our family's remembrance of their own youth as each generation moved faster, trying to surmount the last. Nations and tongues blended in the aftermath of wars. Miscommunication was rampant between the old and the young. Entire landscapes vanished. Ecosystems were transferred to mythology. Our fathers, the destroyers from every era, tried to record everything, build a world of tombstones, an afterlife in the present filled with their own monuments. Treasures of all nations were laid cheaply at our feet: silk, statues, music, and spices. We had something of the idol worshippers in us, loving the rare and fantastic like the Israelites and the golden calf. Energy swam and ripped through everything: bright colors, electric music, banners, billboards, guns and explosives, social volcanism. I hope my children are more confident than me, look back less and with more understanding, are less shaken by the words of the ruins and more stirred and attracted to their soul's visions and intuitions. Solidify the mind's holograms, institutions of my ascendance. Accept the remnant of all peoples, fusing and combining elements. On your path, glide past the old churches in search of fresh revelation. Let their halls blend with the dust of your feet. Ramun Parish, galactic historian on the future history of the cosmic race, the Americas / Atlan Earth, first century cosmic era. Okay, this one's called a proclamation. Humanity, even disproportionately, has entered into the heroic and superhuman phase of its existence, or perhaps merely its shadow inverse. Still, from here on, we are genies, shapeshifters, corporations of robotic insects, ecological corrosives, or cooperative alchemists. The fifth kingdom of matter, ether always present and accessed, though now perhaps the flesh of our bodies. New epic of herstory and civilizations, the dance into light speed. Exhale and reflect the rays of it coming. The aesthetic age, perfection and transformation of the physical form, scientific verification of the soul, the cultivation of luminous architectures and biospheres, re-establishment of a planetary telepathic communication system, mass dissemination of the techniques of ecstasy. Like the first last time when we were children in the afterglow of creation, though we navigate this cycle. We set the limits and we surpass them. Okay, two more. And this last, or second to last one, is called retrospective prospectus. And a retrospective, like if you're doing an artist retrospective, some of y'all are artists on the line, is a look back at a body of work or to look back at a period. And a prospectus is a term that's used in the business world, and it means to make a proposal. And so this poem was kind of written in a way where I was sort of looking back at this whole period, and I kind of compressed it into a bunch of, it was kind of a compression. And I do want to say that there's this like edge in this poem in particular, but in a lot of them, where there's the whole translation between the world of archetypes and the world of reality. And there's like a possibility of delusion that is always present with that. And so I've chosen to leave it as it is, and I'll trust you all to listen with that sharpness. I dreamed I was the hero, successor of rock stars, bluesmen, and esoteric poets, of shamans and witch doctors, reincarnation of ancient gods, astrologer architects from Venus. I was to found a city of rainbows sunk for eons in the sea. I would have a wife, children, and lovers, brothers whose eyes burned and glowed as they looked into horizons. My people were of every color and culture, half-breeds, hybrids, and exiles. A new art would be taught, new schools established, a language to speak form into existence, the alphabet of shape shifting. I would die either as a city arose or vanish as an old man to take immortal watch over my creation. A terrible war would be endured, a journey through twilight and darkness, redemption for a divine betrayal, penance. On the other side, towers, forests, dragons, and starships glistening, iridescent skin, and an age of exploration. Atlantis rising. Final. Let the lore be told, and it's time again. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was amazing.
So we got like 14 minutes left on the official, and I just want to open up the line if people have anything they want to say, if you have any thoughts, questions, any connections come up. Yeah.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Well done, bravo. Hi, Michelle.
Now maybe I'll come from being weirdly behind.
Come hang out with us.
Ramon, I'd love if you are up for it to talk a little bit about the channeling aspect of this for you. And hey, Michelle. And that was yeah, I was so curious about your experience with the channeling, and maybe even like if the channeling kind of at large, but also like maybe any differences between the experiences of channeling different ones. And yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's like, I don't use that word a lot, but that was with many of them, that was what my experience was. And, we talked about kind of in the beginning, I read like in the foreword how I was in a Uranus square at that time of my natal Uranus. And I have a moon conjunct Uranus in Scorpio. And there was a time in my life where like these things were really disorienting to me. And I would have these very disorienting like sensation packages that I had no language for. I had no experience with. There was nobody I could find that could tell me. Like I felt like like cubist structures like passing through my body, and I was like, what the hell? Like I was being like cut, like spatial structures would like pass through me, and I felt like I was being cut. And like it's just, like I even now I can barely describe it. And I felt like in the beginning, and it was like somehow or another, it was like space that was being made and like a reorganization that happened in my nervous system. And truly, I was like, I was alone in that. I couldn't find anything in the books. I couldn't talk to anybody. And so part of the writing was actually trying to navigate and make sense of a lot of those really intense and bizarre sensations. And then it's like the retrospective prospectus, I wrote that one in a clear state of mind. And it was really like thinking back on this whole period and trying to compress it into a story. Whereas a proclamation, I used to have these experiences sometimes where I would hear these sounds internally. That's why I keep making chime sounds. I wanted to try to play chime over here, but it doesn't translate through Zoom. But I would hear these, and then at the end of that, sometimes the words would come through, and sometimes I would just see a series of pictures, and I just try to take notes on what I was seeing. You know, and then other times there's a poem, the set of poems called "Up from Under," right? Kind of the one that starts with "Evil woman me." Those were dreams actually that I'd had, and poetry. You kind of you work with it and you craft it a little bit, make a story out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that was fucking amazing, like deeply, deeply powerful work. And I really also like it has that, what is the right word? Like that heft, that like weight, where it does really feel like something fucking came through and landed in language in an amazing way, and throughout the whole book. So, happy birthday! You should be proud of yourself. And I'm really honored to know you and to know your work. So yeah, thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, Kim. I see something in the comments. Asp, as you said earlier, the translation always contains a layer of delusion, sublime and beautifully imperfect. Yeah, and that was kind of like putting it together. Like, I know like Adrian and Anna have experience creating books of poetry and creative works, and there's something really cool about the process of I've had these poems in the nightstand for like a lot of years. I knew they were a book in like 2005, and it just kind of, but actually putting them together, laying them out side by side, tweaking things here and there, changing the titles. It was such a cool process, and also like making the choice in a lot of places to actually leave in the delusion and the beautifully imperfect stuff, because I feel like it's also kind of how mythologies are operate. Like if we completely sanitize them, it doesn't have enough muck in it to connect to people. You know what I mean? Like at that time in my life, those were the things that were alive, And so I left certain things in there. I left some words that were not necessarily politically correct. I used the word tribe a couple different times. I used the term gypsy. I left them in there, and not to, but just to be like, yeah. And my understanding of things has changed over time.
It's also a great era of illusion and delusion. So maybe it's good to have some of that.
Totally. And I think that was another thing that was so like crazy about all this stuff. First of all, to then get into the study of astrology and the study of like rites of passage and life cycles and stuff, and see that like I was going through I felt like I was in these like private hells, honestly. I would be in a dorm room and I was like, I'm losing my mind, and everyone else around me is cool. And I'm like, how do I, and then I look at my birth chart and I'm like, what was happening at that time? Oh, you were having a Pluto, transiting Pluto conjunct your natal sun and Neptune and Venus. And like any person that uses astrological language just be like, yeah, things were probably pretty bizarre for you and metamorphic at that time. And I think also that combination of Pluto and Neptune, like it like just like activated all these like internal, like this whole stream of internal images. And this is kind of goes to the challenge question. Sometimes I would just meditate on a word or two and then it would open up the gates. Like I used to do automatic writing. I would just like surrealism style. And this phrase, the sisterhood, appeared. And so I think our camera's out of sync. Maybe it's just for us. And so I started off a poem with that phrase, the sisterhood was, and then the rest of it just flooded out.
Lots of hand
Oh
up.
yeah, go.
Well, I wonder if you want to speak about the myth of Atlantis and how you were working with it then and how it showed up in the poetry and what it means to you now.
Totally. You all hear that? Yeah, like there's like this big theme in this book that I'm like am trying to work with. And it's this one of the themes is actually banishment. And this feeling that I had at that time, and I think it's still really pertinent um, that there was a part of our psychic life or our spiritual life or our cultural life or certain ways of being in relationship to spirit, divine, God, goddess that have become illegal and that have been banished. And and part of what came through in some of these stories, like the first couple of poems, the sisterhood, the people of Uranus, Neptune, Venus, is and this is something like Sherry kind of had us meditating on with like Saturn, is like Saturn like takes off Uranus's genitals. And I feel like that's this severance that happened between the outer planets and the inner planets. And then like the world that we know kind of gets composed post Saturn. And so I felt like a lot of what was happening in this whole period of my life was actually, I feel like it was Uranus and Neptune chiefly, and to some extent Pluto, like sort of sending these messages through me and like bringing out these like forgotten, yeah, that's right. Drexia, that's
and
it.
Zuko.
Yep, that's it. Right? It's like so it was like as part of these like banished archetypes, and like part of the story of particularly chapter 2 is about going after them. It's like there are these things that are sunken. Are they sunk in the ocean? Are they sunk in the earth? Are they sunk in our collective unconscious? Are they sunk in us culturally? And then this like, as they got contacted, I feel like as I got contacted at this time, they started to like rise up out of my subconscious. And what was funny, this was like 2001. I started seeing the Atlantis thing everywhere. They dropped that Disney movie Atlantis around that time.
And it was good.
It was tight. There was a movie company called Atlantis. And I just had this feeling actually that archetype was coming up really strong at that time. And now, again, with the study of astrology, the late and mid 90s, that conjunction between Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn, I think that was part of what was happening there. And I was like picking up on some of those energies. And I think that archetype started to resurface back then. And so just to say one last thing with that, Michelle and I were both college students at this time when we were writing our like senior theses. And Michelle had one about like culture and imagination, and how like culture, like the more kind of rich spectrum of cultures that we're aware of, the more possible futures we have. and I was writing about how our times are sort of so unprecedented, and like look at where we are now, y'all. Like here we are talking to each other over all these screens. Oh, Adrian's got to go, got to cut out. Thank you, Moni. Thank you, Adrian. Love you. Thanks for being here. And we'll close it up here in a second. But just like, yeah, I guess I was writing about how our times are so unprecedented historically in the things that we're doing that the only precedent we had is mythology. You know, when you look at what's about to happen and what's happening now, it's like, are we going to be humans like we understand humans in another 30, 40, 50 years? So it's kind of like if we're going to face these new realities, there's these actually these old, and did they actually happen or not? Am I literally saying Atlantis happened, Lemuria? I don't know. This is kind of not the point. But if we are going to face these realities that we're creating, we need a precedent. We need a Sankofa. And the Sankofa is actually in the depths of the imagination. It's kind of what, you know.
And like Atlantis is a tragedy story. So, do we have things to go back to that are survival, beautification, resilience?
Yeah, that's right. Atlantis is a cautionary tale. And that's the other part of this is it's like our times, we're in Atlantis now. And the whole thing could sink. And this is something else that over the years, like kind of came to me is like, Saturn did what Saturn did for good reason almost. And this is a weird element in the story, but I don't know if y'all picked up on this, but a lot of it is actually an exploration of the mythic roots of patriarchy. It's like, well, why were those archetypes banished? That's forms that were so intricate, they were banished and called chaos.
Feminine.
Yeah, that's kind of so. And I'm not like making this ultimate judgment about it one way or the other. These were just some of the things I was wrestling with, and I feel like there is a way in which we can be pre-moral and pre-ideological and just like really look at these stories and look at what they evoke in us. And because it's kind of like there's another line in one of the poems. It's like, the crystal is coming again, prepare yourselves. And it's like those forms and those archetypes that we banished, if we're going to be whole, they got to come back into the picture. They're here now. Okay, I'll stop. Maybe is there maybe one more thing somebody else wants to say, and then we can. Please.
I have a question and comments. And I can talk for a while, so somebody can shut me up at some point. Okay, first comment. I've been looking at your chart because I'm like that. And today, the Jupiter-Sun opposition is on Ramon's IC-MC. Ta-da! Jupiter's on Ramon's IC, the Sun is on the MC, and the Sun-Mercury conjunction just happened there. And at tea time, at tea time today, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, we're caught up, or we're like stuttered.
Oh, okay. It's your internet, not mine.
Can everyone?
You can all hear me okay?
Okay, great. We'll just.
So at tea time today, we were talking about the Jupiter-Mercury mutual reception as this kind of opportunity to explore the philosophies and the beliefs from more of an amoral place, like that the Gemini Mercurial place. Sorry, I'm echoing back through your computer. It can be really flexible, right? Like it's not stuck on a kind of moralism. And then Jupiter can really expand that from inside of Gemini. And so like all these new stories can get told, or old stories can get recycled, reused, etc. The REs. But so that brings up a question for me, because so Rachel asked about channeling, and then you've been talking about this journey that you've been on since you wrote these poems. Are you here? Maybe I'm just asking a question to the ethers of Ramon.
No, I'm here. I don't know. We're here.
Oh no, Ramon went out and then came back in. Okay. So my question, Ramon, if you can hear me somewhere out there, my question for you has to do, oh no, now he's gone. Oh no, now you're there. You can hear me okay? Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. Okay, so my question has to do with like this current transit right now, and then, okay, follow me. Your Pisces rising, your chart ruler is Jupiter. Jupiter is in Cancer in like a whole sign 5th house. It's opposing Mercury. Jupiter is ruled by the moon. You have the Scorpio moon in the 8th house. The moon is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun. You have the sun conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius. All that to say is like, clearly you channel, right? Like clearly. And so what is it, and this is maybe a question for the group, because I have this question too, like what is it that inside of the current paradigm we stop ourselves from saying, oh, I'm a channel. Oh, I'm a like celestial medium. I get messages from the planets. Like you talked about that Uranus transit to your moon. And when I had Uranus trining my sun, I also like a lot of, I think those transits of Uranus to the luminaries and the ascendant, like it does things to people's bodies. And your moon is kind of always conjunct to Uranus. Like we have this language. We have, like, we can talk about ourselves in these ways. So like, what stops us from claiming the language, right? And like using the language to really claim ourselves. And now that you've released this book and that you're out as an astrologer and people just know, I guess like, okay, you're 48 this year. It's a 47. Okay, so it's an 11. It's also a master number. Next year is a master number. You have these transits happening. Like, what is in the way, or is there anything that could support you in opening this channel wider, deeper, and in really like claiming what you know about yourself? And like, I don't know, how can we all do that, or how can we all support you? Because I feel like your writing and your teaching and like what I know about you is like you're bringing in coding, you know, like you said, your book is to kind of help us divest from patriarchy, or I don't know how you phrase it, but you know, heal there. Like I feel like you have this coding, we have this language. So yeah, like you're clearly a channel.
It helps. I think all writing is channeling, and if we just don't make such a big deal about using the word, like I think a lot of things are channeling. Like I think translation is channeling. I think, I don't know. Maybe it's almost just like we don't use it because it's been made too rarefied, but actually it's ordinary.
I mean, it's been rarefied, and then also, this book, Ramon's also kind of struggling with his like Christian upbringing, where you are not supposed to engage in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And if you do, it has to look a particular way. And so, yeah, I think that was a struggle back then. And honestly, it's still a little bit. It still is a bit. And then on the other side, there's this sort of the whole like scientific legitimacy of things, right? And the public face, you know, of like, well, can I like be a socially respectable person and tell you that my soul came in from whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like that, these kinds of things. Um, so I think that's part of it. And then also for me, I'm also concerned, wonder about like just the delusional aspect of it. And like the way in which we make each other into like weird like idols by, you know what I'm saying? Like you get on Instagram and look at all the, you know, there's a lot of weird stuff going on out there. And so I don't know. I think I got a lot of like some part of me is like I have some anxiousness about putting myself out there in these ways because of the kinds of attention that it can attract. Um, some of it is me still grappling with my religious upbringing. Some of it is me grappling with scientific materialism and the fact that it's sort of the respected paradigm of our society. And some of it is just finding the right places to like share these things and to be in like an actual discourse with people. And that's just like, you know, body astrology has been great over this last year as a place where that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what other folks think.
How you doing, Tom?
Yeah,
I think you're in good company with a bunch of fucking poets around you. I mean, the musicians and the poets, I don't think there's one of us who has not grappled with credibility politics, right? But that's no fun. Like, what fun would the world be without the imagination? No, you're just the one being the Imagineer and steering the way. So let that be.
I remember when I went to one of your talks at Trident, you were talking about bringing the daytime or the nighttime into the daytime. And I feel like that's what you're doing right here. Is like bringing your nighttime world into your daytime world. And like, how do you actually braid those together? And I'm like, I'm the same way. I'm like, I have no idea how to share my art and bring all my imagination into the actual world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really inspiring to hear this happening.
Mm. And it's so funny because it's like science is struggling with this too. And actually, a lot of the great scientists who made major breakthroughs, if you ask them how they did it, it was not through the scientific method. They're like, well, I don't really want to tell you how I figured this out. You know, it's like I've meditated on this problem for many years, and then suddenly I knew the answer, you know. Night committee, yeah. And even now, you know, sometimes research will show things, you know, like some of us talked about recently with like plant intelligence, and even with the data in front of them, they're like, this can't be, like what is can't be. So maybe we're back to that delusion, but it is a great era, I think, of gaslighting, and it's like coming from many directions.
I just think the more that people can speak about it in this way, that's like humble and discerning and also creative and imaginative, like the more it does become legitimized. It's like the people out there who are like maybe not totally clear about their questions of whether it's delusional or not seem more dangerous than the ones that can really hold it with the like what's coming through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of what we gotta, or we have the opportunity to do more directly is like develop forms of education and culture where like the rational mind and the imaginative mind or the channeling mind or even the sensitized body, right, as a channeling tuning fork, like are more in relationship with each other. Because, you know, like if you look at like, okay, like the ancient Greek, like the Pythia, right, like and we could probably go back and forth with this, but there was one person who channeled and there was one person who interpreted for the person who channeled. And I feel like we kind of have a challenge to cultivate both of those qualities within ourselves, right? Because like you can't take, I mean, any poet knows this, you can't take every image at face value, you know? And that you intentionally veil certain things in images because it can be digested better by people, or like hidden until the right time they actually can be made sense of, like stored, you know? So yeah, I feel like that, like some like doing that more. And I think you're right, Renee, like how do we claim these capacities that we have, instead of banishing them? Still working on it. Yeah, and I'm feeling that big mutable cross right now. I'm like, you know. And it's like, you're 47, dude. Like, you have these books sitting here. You just gonna keep them for the rest of your life and not share with anybody? Nah, don't do that. You're gonna be old, dead soon. Like, get it out there.
I'm proud for doing it.
Yeah, and thank you, Anna, for the coaching actually on putting the book together. I want to just thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I really yeah, it's like if I was just, if no one showed up, then well, then what the hell, you know? And it's like, it's a gift actually to me that you all were present and heard it. And I hope it was a gift to you just to hear some of these stories. And yeah, I just appreciate y'all's time and interest. And hopefully we can keep creating these spaces for one another.
Thank you, Ramon. Happy birthday. Have a fun
Yeah.
night.
Thank you, Ramon.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday. Bye.
Thank
You
you.
all.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Happy birthday. Bye, guys.
Congratulations on the new baby. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thanks, Ramon. Congratulations.
Thank you, Renee, for setting this up.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure. I'll share the recording with you when it comes through.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You too. This is awesome.
Great question.